Hi everyone, Sarah here from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. Welcome to another Chit Chat Tuesday, and I have moved to the other end of the studio and I'm in my usual filming space because I've got something I want to show you under the camera today, and this is the easiest place to do it. So what are we looking at? We are looking at forbidden stitch. So we've never had a look at this stitch on this channel, and I don't really know why, because it's a really interesting one. It's got a really interesting story behind it, and it's a very, very beautiful stitch and lots of beautiful things made with it. So we are going to do this in several videos. So this one I'm going to look at the stitch. I'm going to show you my wonderful piece from my collection with the stitch on it and show you where else you can see this stitch. And then in other videos we're going to show you how to actually do the stitch. We're going to break it down into smaller videos really, if you like. I might compare them as well, because I think it'd be interesting to compare it with a French knot and a colonial knot. What's the difference? When should you use which one? And I've also got a video for my channel members, my YouTube channel members and my patrons, and we're going to stitch a little bit of it in a little project as well. So we've got all of that coming up. So let's start by showing you what this stitch is. So I'm going to show you this stitch on my little sampler. So I have been practicing it, I've been trying it out, and if you watch my channel regularly you will know that I'm a fan of practicing and of sampling. If you haven't done a stitch before, if you're trying a new stitch, just get a little bit of fabric, try it out, just see what it looks like, what the stitch can do, what it's like in different threads. Well worth doing that, and you can see I've done that here. So this is the stitch across the middle. So this is what it looks like here, and I've had lots of little goes at it in different kinds of thread and different ways of doing it to see if I can find the easiest way to do it. So some of them didn't work. This is in a very fine thread. This is in a 6 strands of stranded. So these ones have come out quite well. There's a little group over here. I did some French knots as well for comparison. We'll come back to that in another video, I think. So it's basically a little knotted stitch, and you can loosen the stitch and you can make these little circles with it. So you can do some different things with a stitch that you can't do with a French knot. So this is the basic stitch here that we're going to look at, and I want to talk about all of its different names because it's known as lots of different things, which is what contributes to the intrigue of this stitch. I'm going to read them because there's quite a few. So you might have heard this stitch called the Pekin knot or the Peking knot. The difference between those two seems to be European translations of the name that the city used to be called. So it's now modern day Beijing. It used to be called Peking, and Peking is a translation, depending on where you came in Europe, of that. So you might hear Pekin without the G or Peking with the G. There's the Chinese knot as well, and then we get into the interesting one. So it's also known as the blind knot or forbidden stitch. So you might hear those terms as well. All of those names are this stitch that I have just shown you. So you might have to be a bit inventive with how you look this up if you want to see some examples of it. You might have to try some of these different names because it's known under all of those. You'll understand the latter two names, blind knot and forbidden stitch, in a second when I show you this beautiful piece from my collection. But I just want to mention at this point that it is not Pekingese stitch. Now, if you have a little look around on YouTube, there's lots of people calling it Pekin stitch, Chinese knot, and doing Pekingese stitch. Completely different stitch. Pekingese stitch is not a knotted stitch. The clue's in the name. It's a knot, Pekin knot. Pekingese is a row of back stitch and then you weave through the back stitch. So it's a completely different stitch, but obviously it's got a very similar name. So it is easy to get those two mixed up. They were used together in embroideries. So again, room for more confusion there, but they are two completely separate stitches. So for the sake of argument, let's pick one of those names for the rest of this video. So I'm going to call it Peking stitch for the rest of this video, and I want to show you this piece from my collection. So I'm going to show you my little Chinese bag now so you can see all the knots on here, and I'm going to zoom in closer on this in a second, but this is all Peking stitch here. All of these filled in areas are Peking stitch. It's got these beautiful little silk tassels on it as well. Don't know the age of this. I'm not going to guess because I'm not an expert in this. Showing a little sign of wear and tear. There's a couple of little holes in it, but it's absolutely beautiful. So it's a silk bag. It's got silk tassels. It's been stitched in silk thread and it's stitched on one side, and I'll turn it over. It's all stitched on the other side as well. So different colour, which is really interesting. I like this two-tone colour and completely different set of colour for the stitching, but again, all of this is the Peking knot stitch here. And it's got some outlines which we'll have a look at closer in a second. So you can see it's quite densely worked, lots of little knots, and I'm going to put something next to it for scale in a second because you can't appreciate how small these knots are until you look really closely. So let's have a little zoom in and take a closer look. So I think this is about as close as I can get. Hopefully you can see this really clearly. We're going to look at this little central motif here, this little vase with some flowers in it. So the features of this Peking knot are, they're very small. So if I put my finger next to that, that whole thing is the size of my fingernail. It's absolutely tiny. And the whole motif, size of my little finger, no bigger than that. So it's teeny, teeny, tiny. So the knots are really, really small. And they would also shade with these knots. So you see a lot of shading in this embroidery. So you can see it on the flower here. It's got these 3 colours of red. So it's got a red and a light one and a really light one inside. So they would just do the same knot throughout, but there's lots of opportunity for shading. Not necessarily naturalistic shading, but lots of beautiful colours in there. And again in the blue, so 2 colours of blue. Actually 3 colours. There's a dark blue, there's a medium one here, and then there's a light blue in the middle. So you can see a lot of shading in this technique. And the other thing is that they are also worked quite uniformly, which is really interesting. So with French knots, you tend to dot them around a bit and you mix them up and you can make some wonderful textures in it and in more modern day embroidery. But these Peking knots, they did them in rows. They did 1 row one colour and 1 row the next colour. Really quite uniform for this knot. And you can see it in this little element over here. Let's just zoom over to that. So can you see the rows here? So there's a dark red, then there's the medium, and then there's the light. But they're all in these rows. Everything is in rows. And they're all worked in the same direction. So you will work the knot exactly the same way. You don't jump around with it. You don't work it from a different angle. You work them all from the same angle. And the little sort of round part of the knot sits at the bottom. So that's very characteristic of this type of embroidery. So very small stitches, worked in rows and done in this very particular kind of shading. So let's just flip it over and have a little look at the other side. So completely different colours, but still the same stitch. So all of these are the Peking knot. And again, you can see that shading, the light blue, the medium and the dark, all done in the same direction. So it's got this uniformity to it and teeny tiny stitches. I just put my finger again next to that for comparison. And if I actually bring my sample in and show you my sample next to this, that will give you a real sense of the size. Let's show you on this side here. Let's do that little red bit there. So these are my knots. These are the knots on the bag. Okay, we'll touch closer. So this is 6 strands of stranded cotton. So absolutely teeny tiny little stitches, minute stitches. And I tried doing them this small. Here, this is a silk thread and they're still twice as big as they are on the original one. Before we look into the story behind why it was called blind stitch on forbidden stitch, I just want to mention the materials because we've had a good peer at this, and I've got Jonathan to look as well because I couldn't tell what it was I was looking at. And I've looked at the stitches and I looked at the thread. So what I think it was made out of, it's got this metal element to it. So you can see this here. Now this has been couched. This is a gold work technique. If you're familiar with gold work, you will know this technique. You lay the thread on top of the surface, you stitch over it, and the whole thread, metal thread, sits on the top. Now I think this might have been a sort of a coppery colour. May have been gold because it's gone a bit brown. When I look closely though, it's very hard to tell. It just looks like a sort of brown leathery colour. So maybe copper, maybe gold, probably gold, I would guess at, but I love this colour that it's tarnished to, really beautiful. So there's just some elements of that in here for sort of stems and a little bit on the bowl here. And then these knots have been done in silk. So let me just show you these. So a little bit of that thread would look a bit similar to this. So this is a passing thread. So it's just a core thread with a coloured wire, a metal wire wrapped around it. And you would stitch that down. That's the finest one that I can find that I have. And it's about the same size as on the bag, so it's very, very fine thread for that. That's a little copper one. And there's a thicker one there that's a silver one. You can probably see that a little bit more clear. You can see how sort of wiry it is. That's a silver version, so you can sort of bend it into the shapes, which helps when you come to stitch it down. So that's what that would have been made out of, but the silk is not a unspun silk. It's not like a flat silk that hasn't been twisted that you see a lot in Chinese embroidery, especially in sort of needle painting embroidery. You will see that's beautiful flat silk, lots of fine fibres together that haven't been spun. But this, I don't think is that. I think this has got a twist to it, and the way you can tell is if you look at the tassels, because I think this is the same thread that they used. I think this is the green from this side here. And this has got a twist to it. Let's do a colour that you can see a bit more clearly. Let's try this one. You can just see the little bit of a twist to this thread. It's not the flat silk, it's got a twist to it. And I think this is what they use. You can see these colours in the bag, throughout the bag here. So it would look a little bit like, I've got some modern day versions. So just a slight twist to it. You can see at the end, it's just coming untwisted. So it's just got that little twist to it, and that's what they would have used for it. I've got some other makes. This is a De Vere Yarns one in beautiful red colour. Just enough twist to kind of hold it together. You don't strand it like you would a stranded cotton or a floss. You use it as it is in one strand. And there's an Avera Soie one as well, which is quite nice. Get that colour again, beautiful colour. So again, it's got a little bit of twist to it. So that's what I think that they would have used. We have a whole video on silk threads, what they are and what the difference is, and how to use them as well. So if you're interested in using silk threads, do go check that one out. Loads of information in there. So we've had a little look at the metal thread used and the silk for the knots, but I just want to also draw your attention to this white outline here. Now I've peered at this really, really closely. Jonathan's got a very high magnification monocle and we've been peering at this to see what on earth this white thread is, and I just cannot work out what it is. It's got this sort of crinkle in it. It's a little bit like a sort of boucle kind of thread, but a little bit more even. So it's got a sort of a twist to it. I can see that it's been couched down, so it's laying on the top like the metal thread and it's been stitched over, but I don't know how they've got the twist in it. And then there's some area, so this little bit at the top of the vase, that hasn't got the twist, but it's quite clearly the same thread. So the thread is twisted around here, then it kind of flattens out and goes around here, and then there's another little area up here which isn't twisted either and has just been couched over and couched down. So I'm not sure what this thread is and how this has been worked. I would have an idea about how to make it look like that, but they haven't done that because it's just a single thread that has got this twist in it, this strange sort of pattern to it, and that's been stitched over and couched down. So if you've got any ideas what that might be, then do let me know, because I'm a bit baffled about that one. But what is interesting about it is they would outline everything with this. So you can see the flowers and the vase are all outlined in this white thread. So they did that first, they put the outline in, couched that thread in, and then they worked the knots inside it afterwards. So quite interesting to see the process. So the knotted areas have all got an outline around them. You don't rely on the knots to make the outline. You put the outline in and then you fill in with the knots. These have got a little row of knots inside here as well. So really interesting to look closely and see how this has been constructed. Okay, so let's talk about the names. So blind stitch and forbidden stitch. I think now that you have seen those knots and seen the size of them and seen how many there were, you can understand how it got those names. So the story goes, and I think it is a story, but it's a good one, is that ladies were forbidden to use it because it made them blind by doing this stitch. Obviously, it wasn't banned because I've got a bag covered in it, and as you'll see in a second, there are loads more pieces covered in it as well. But it does make a really good story, and you could understand how that you could hurt your eyes doing it if you did that many stitches and at that size in those threads without good light, without magnification. You can see how it would put the strain on your eyes and maybe not make you blind, but certainly ruin your eyesight perhaps, and you wouldn't be able to do it. So you can see where that name came from, just from the size and the sheer quantity of this stitch. So a more plausible theory, I think, for the name Forbidden Stitch certainly is related to the fact that it was done within the walls of the Forbidden City, which is the Imperial Palace complex in the centre of the Imperial City in Beijing. So Forbidden City, Forbidden Stitch, it kind of makes sense really that it comes from the place that it was actually stitched. So this work is very highly skilled. I've tried a little bit myself. It's really hard to do it this small. And the other thing about this stitch is quite hard to do it consistently so that you're not the same size. So this work would have been done in the imperial court of the Forbidden City by highly skilled workers. So it was only done in this area. So you can see that it would get the name of the place that it was done in. And just as a matter of interest, I had a little look this up because I thought it was quite interesting. So the city was called the Forbidden City because it had very severely restricted access to it. It was only the emperor and the imperial family that were allowed in. And then if anybody tries to get unauthorized entry into the Forbidden City, they were immediately executed. Quite harsh, to say the least. But I guess you're protecting your royal family, you're protecting your emperor, and anybody that comes in is a danger, and they got shot. So Forbidden City, because not many people were allowed inside this absolutely huge complex. So we know that it wasn't banned because there are lots of pieces of it. So what I'm going to do now is show you where you can see some of these pieces. We're going to go and have a look at the Victoria and Albert Museum collections on their website and show you some more samples of this because they're absolutely beautiful pieces. The work in them is stunning. So I'm going to go and jump on the computer and I am going to show you some different pieces from that collection. Okay, so if you just go and search for V&A Collections, you will find it, or you can click on the link in the description below this video. I'll put that there for you. You can just click on that to go to the collections and we can go and search by an object. So all I'm going to search for is Peking stitch. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can search for forbidden stitch as well. You could try Chinese knot and see what you come up with and have to try the different names. But I'm just going to put Peking stitch and you can see all these beautiful pieces that have got the stitch in. So I'm just going to pick a couple and show you a couple here. So let's jump right in on this first one. Pair of sleeve bands, 19th century, China, artist maker unknown. And then you can click on the images and we can actually zoom in because I want to show you these beautiful flowers, and I can't get it any closer than that you can see this beautiful red flower in the center of the screen. So this is all Pekin knots. So you can see those different layers of the colors. You can see the light going out to the dark at the edges, so very specific shading style, not very naturalistic. It's all done in kind of bands of color, but this whole rose is stitched in that, this whole flower, possibly a chrysanthemum rather than a rose. Different stitch here for the background leaves, but the flowers all done in this stitch, and then you can see the whole bands of it as well. Let's have a little look at the bottom. Can move around. So these look like all long and short stitch and satin stitch. So it's just sort of kept really for these flower elements, these great big beautiful flowers in the centre. So all of this is Peking knot. Got some different images along the bottom. You can have a look. Let's see if we can zoom in this one any closer. Not really. So you've got different images that you can look around. So let's go back to the previous one. So another pair of sleeve bands here. Let's just click on that one, just the one image of this one. Oh no, several images here. You can zoom in nice and close. This is absolutely stunning, this piece here. So again, all of this flower area, all Peking knots. The leaves as well, you can see the shading very strongly in these leaves. Beautiful Chinese elements here. You can see the dragons. Elephants, which are quite unusual. I love these elephants. Absolutely amazing. But all Peking knots, all of this around here, all of these edging, all of these leaves, all these flowers. So you can see again why we referred to it as blind knot and forbidden stitch. Just so many of them in those tiny, tiny, tiny knots. These two are absolutely stunning, really beautiful pieces. All of that is knots. Absolutely incredible. And you will notice as well, if it says V&A East Storehouse on it, order this object. Let's just click on it again, scroll down to that. You can actually go and see this object in real life. You can order it. You can order up to 5 objects and you can go to their new storehouse that they have got in London and you can actually look at them in real life. This is absolutely amazing. So if it's got that on it, you can actually go and see the real thing. Skirt panel, 19th century China, artist unknown. Look at the gold on that. So we looked a little bit at the gold thread on my little purse. So this is what it would look like in real life. Lots of gold here, really stunning. And let's go and search for the Pekin knots. I think down here in these little elements at the side, you can kind of tell from the shading that they're the knotted stitch. You can't do that sort of shading in any other way. A little bit more over here on the left hand side as well. And a little bit in the top left. Yeah, you can see lots of it in this motif up here in the flower, in these green colours here and the blue as well. Let's just see if we can zoom in on any of that. So some different views of the whole thing. Really excellent photographs. So not so many knots on this one. So you have to sort of search for them. But if you look for the tiny little stitches and the shading, you will see them. So if you just scroll down here, you can see lots more pieces here. Let's jump on this fragment here in the elements in the middle here. So they mixed it a lot. So they mixed it with a gold thread. You can see these swirls here are done in the gold thread. This is the Pekin knot here in the middle. They've got some satin stitch or some long and short stitch for the flowers and for the figures as well. So they would mix them with lots of other different stitches as well. So you wouldn't be quite so blind not stitching the whole thing, but really stunning pieces of embroidery. So let's just pick one more. There's lots of pages of this here. So let's just pick this panel. Zoom into this. So again, the mix of stitches here. Here's the Pekin knot. Loads and loads and loads of them. We've got this edging around it. So they put an edging around and then stitch inside the edging with the knots. So that's another way that you can tell it. The satin stitch doesn't have an edging around it. It's just the knots that have this edging around them. So that's just a few of the ones that you can see on the website. So do go and have a look at that and have a little root around and see what else you can find. So I hope you found those really interesting. I'll put a link to the V&A collections in the description below this video. We do also have a video on online collections with lots of places that you can see other embroidery collections and from the comfort of your own home. So I've got some of them in the video, and underneath there is a link to other places as well. We've got a page on the website with loads of different links. Some of you have been sending in links that I didn't know about for collections that you can explore online. So do go and have a look on the website as well at those, because they're absolutely beautiful and you can see all these incredible pieces of embroidery you couldn't see any other way. So I hope you found that interesting, that little look into this forbidden stitch, blind stitch, Chinese knots, Peking knots, whichever you want to call it. And look out for more videos coming on this. I'm going to show you how to do it. Hopefully I'm going to compare them with other kinds of knots as well. And for YouTube channel members and patrons, we've got a special one coming just for you. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching, everybody. It was appreciated. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.